The tragic events of September 11, 2001, left an indelible mark on the world. For television personality Kelly Ripa, who had just begun her journey as co-host of Live with Regis Philbin at the time, the day remains etched in her memory with painful clarity. More than 2 decades later, Ripa continues to revisit those moments, recalling not only where she was but how profoundly the tragedy shaped her perspective, her career, and her sense of responsibility as a public figure. In a recent reflection, Ripa shared candid details of what it was like to be live on air as the nation was shaken by the terrorist attacks. The morning had started like any other episode of Live, with the usual energy and light-hearted banter. But within minutes, the world as they knew it had changed forever. "I always remember that day," Ripa admitted, her voice carrying the weight of a memory too heavy to ever fade. "It was the first time I realized how small and yet how connected we all are, sitting in that studio while the world outside was unraveling. A morning like no other." On September 11, 2001, millions of Americans tuned into their morning shows, expecting entertainment, celebrity interviews, and laughter. Ripa and Regis Philbin were preparing to guide viewers through their usual hour of talk. But as news began breaking about a plane crashing into the North Tower of the World Trade Center, the mood inside the studio shifted instantly. "It was surreal," Ripa has said in recalling those moments. "We didn't even fully understand what was happening at first. The information was fragmented, confusing, and terrifying." As details came in, the hosts and production team struggled to reconcile their duty to entertain with the reality that the world was under attack. At the time, Ripa had only recently joined Live as Philbin's permanent co-host. The chemistry between the veteran broadcaster and the young actress-turned-TV personality was still being established. Yet that morning, their partnership was tested in ways neither could have anticipated. "I was brand new, still trying to find my footing on the show," she explained. "And suddenly, there we were, sitting in front of cameras while people's lives were changing in an instant. Nothing prepares you for that." Witnessing history unfold. As the second plane hit the South Tower live on television, the gravity of the situation could no longer be denied. For Ripa, the moment remains frozen in time. The collective gasp, the silence in the studio, those are things you don't forget, she shared. "We knew then that this wasn't an accident. It was something darker, something deliberate." Broadcasting during a national tragedy required a delicate balance. While news networks shifted into wall-to-wall coverage, daytime talk shows like Live faced the difficult decision of how to proceed. "We were in this strange place of not wanting to take away from the news, but also knowing people might turn to us for comfort," Ripa recalled. "We didn't know the rules. There were no rules for something like this." The aftermath inside the studio. In the hours and days that followed, New York City became a place of shock, grief, and resilience. For Ripa, whose family and friends were in the city, the attack struck deeply personal chords. She has often spoken about the eerie quiet that fell over Manhattan in the aftermath, the absence of planes overhead, and the heavy feeling of loss that lingered everywhere. "I remember walking outside and seeing streets that were normally bustling with life just silent," she said. "The air was thick, the sky was gray, and everyone looked like they were carrying the same weight." Within the studio, the atmosphere was equally heavy. The show's production team had to decide how to move forward. Should Live continue with its usual format, or should it pivot entirely? For Ripa, the answer was clear. Sensitivity, empathy, and humanity had to come first. Kelly Ripa's personal reflections. More than 20 years later, Ripa continues to reflect on the role she played that day, not as a news anchor, but as a figure on morning television whose presence became, in its own way, a source of stability for viewers. "We weren't journalists, but we were people sitting in a room with millions of other people, trying to process what was happening," she explained. "There's a responsibility in that, even if your job is usually just to make people laugh." She has also spoken about how the tragedy reshaped her understanding of television's role in people's lives. "TV is about connection," she said. "That day taught me that connection isn't just about laughter or distraction. Sometimes it's about being present in the worst moments and reminding people that they're not alone." Regis Philbin's influence. Ripa often credits her late co-host Regis Philbin for guiding her through those early years on Live, and especially through the uncertainty of 9/11. Philbin, already a seasoned broadcaster, offered steadiness and perspective when everything felt uncertain. Regis was incredible, Ripa recalled. He had this ability to stay calm, to keep talking, to fill the silence without making it feel empty. I learned so much from watching him that day. Their partnership grew stronger in the aftermath. Facing such a defining moment together gave them a bond that would carry through the years until Philbin's retirement. For Ripa, his presence on September 11th was not only professional support, but personal reassurance. I couldn't have done it without him, she admitted. A city united. Beyond the walls of the studio, Ripa witnessed the resilience of New Yorkers firsthand. She recalls the acts of kindness, the bravery of first responders, and the unity that seemed to blossom out of devastation. It was one of the darkest days, but it also showed me the light people are capable of, she reflected. Everywhere you looked, there were people helping one another, comforting strangers, doing whatever they could. That spirit of unity, she believes, remains one of the most important lessons of the tragedy. It taught us what community really means, Ripa said. That we are stronger together, even when everything else feels broken. How it shaped her career. For Kelly Ripa, 9/11 marked not only a national turning point, but also a personal one. Having been thrust into such a monumental moment early in her tenure, she developed a new sense of purpose as a broadcaster. It changed the way I approached my work forever, she said. I understood that even if my job was to bring levity, it had to be done with an awareness of the world outside those studio walls. That awareness has stayed with her throughout her decades-long career. Whether discussing lighthearted celebrity news or addressing somber national events, Ripa has carried the memory of that day as a reminder of the role television personalities can play in people's lives. Remembering and honoring. As anniversaries of the attacks come and go, Ripa makes a point of pausing to remember. She often shares her reflections publicly, reminding her audience of the importance of honoring the lives lost and the resilience shown. It's not a day you ever move past, she has said. It's a day you carry with you, always. For her, the personal memories remain intertwined with the collective grief of a nation. She thinks of the viewers who tuned in that morning, the families who suffered unimaginable losses, and the way the world shifted in an instant. It's something you never forget, she emphasized.